It is, in my life, the single greatest example of neuroplasticity that I have ever witnessed. I've never had to go back and do it, and I've never heard the voice again. And so the exercise that I undertook to reverse a pattern of behavior that was in place for more than 40 years was to... Once I recognized the link between my self-talk and my rage, and I fully accepted the fact that I wanted to rid myself of rage, then I accepted the fact that I had to go and fix the self-talk. So my guess is the only way to really try to convince somebody that you're having an inner Bobby Knight, which is what my guy was, having an inner Bobby Knight that screams at you all the time is harmful, is by helping them understand a clear path between how that behavior links to something that is hurting them in another way that is more obvious. And I think if you can't do that, it's probably a little too abstract to just say, you should be nicer to yourself.
I listened on recommendation from a friend to a nearly 20-year-old Tony Robbins Awaken the Giant. And in it, he talks about pain-pleasure principle. And he talks about bringing, with decisions that you want to make, or with habits that you want to change, bringing as much pain to bear. Look at what this has cost me in the past. Look at what this is costing me now. Think about what this will cost me in the future. And then turn that up to 1,000. And what you're talking about is there is a inner tormentor that kind of does a thing, but it's all inside of your head and it's upstream from some things that actually manifest that you can kind of hold on to and do a thing. So how do you get back up? And how do you point the finger at what's actually going on? Well, you bring to bear so much of what's happening in the real world. But yeah, I think this is one of the most common issues, especially people that listen to this sort of a podcast. The high achievers. They want to do things. They want to leave a mark on the world. They want to improve themselves. But so much of that comes from whipping themselves into submission all the time. I'm going to castigate myself until I bow under the strain of how much torment I've given to myself.
But as you know, there's a real myth that you have to do that to perform well, right? And the myth is that, there are plenty of great coaches who extract remarkable performance from their athletes without that behavior. So, and it doesn't mean you're not firm, and it doesn't mean you don't have high standards, and it doesn't mean that if the team absolutely shits the bed and doesn't show up, that the coach isn't going to let them have it. But that's very different from the constant berating. And also, I think there's just a real difference in terms of, differentiating kind of a negative behavior or a negative outcome from the individual themselves is the problem, right? So it's one thing to say, I don't like that I wasn't able to do X, Y, and Z. That's a different statement from I am a worthless person because I didn't do A,
it's a comment on my self-worth, on how much respect I am owed by the world. Okay, so take me through how you reprogrammed that self-talk. I understand that you can have this thing, the rage is downstream from the whatever, but what did that look like? What did going in and fact-checking your very stern inner voice look like?
It was actually a very deliberate set of actions, because I think you have to do actions, and the easiest way to reprogram is through voice. So I think you have to audibly reprogram a system. I don't think thoughts are enough. And so the exercise that I undertook about 4 years ago to reverse a pattern of behavior that was in place for more than 40 years was to every single time I had a moment of what was about to amount in a sort of self-cursing situation, I was instructed to take out my phone and record audibly a description of what I would say to a friend had they just committed the same quote-unquote egregious act. Okay, so example would be, if I'm shooting my bow and arrow and I'm really doing a lousy job of it, instead of jumping into self loathing, I would take out my phone and record a memo speaking, but not to myself, but to my friend. You know, like if it was you, what if you had just shot as poorly as I did? What would I say to you? And I would be much more gentle.
What were the sort of things that you would say?
It would be, you know, and again, you have to understand how strained some of these discussions are, because in the moment you're so angry, right? It would be, hey, Chris, I know you just finished trying to shoot today and it just didn't go well at all. You weren't able to accomplish any of the things you wanted to accomplish. I know it's frustrating. I think you just have to accept a couple of things. One is you're probably a little distracted today, if you're being honest with yourself, because you have a lot on your mind. And, you know, truthfully, it's a little windy today. And it's just hard for those arrows to fly straight when the wind is blowing at 10 miles an hour. And, you know, as you know from previous experiences, like, tomorrow will be a new day. Like, you're going to come out here and do this again tomorrow, and it'll be better. And we're just going to go back to process, and we're going to get it right. And we're going to do a couple of drills tomorrow to instill that. That was it. You know, it might be a 1-minute little voice memo. I'd send that to my therapist. And then, I don't know, 5 hours later, something else would come up that would piss me off. I'd burn a steak or something because I got distracted and left the barbecue. And inside, I'd want to immediately eviscerate myself. But instead, I would pull it out and pretend that it was my brother who had just burned the steak. And what would I say to him if we were at his house and he had just burned the steak? How would I make him feel better about it while acknowledging that it sucks? We don't have dinner tonight, you know? And I would do that. And after 4 to 6 months of doing this, I don't know, 3 to 5 times a day, lo and behold, I couldn't hear Bobby Knight talk anymore.
Wow. So it really turned the volume down?
It is, in my life, the single greatest example of neuroplasticity that I have ever witnessed. I've never had to go back and do it, and I've never heard the voice again. Now, I want to be clear. This doesn't mean I don't get angry. What it means is, A, the frequency with which I get angry is a fraction of what it used to be. And the duration or the blast radius is much narrower. So the last time I got really pissed at myself or pissed at my inability to do something was I was in the simulator. I'm trying to learn a new F1 circuit in the simulator. And for whatever reason, there are certain tracks that are just very hard. I was down in the simulator and I was going through it and I just couldn't nail the second and third last corners. And, you know, after, I don't know, an hour of this, I just got super frustrated, got out of the simulator and was like absolutely ripping pissed off. But because I didn't indulge in any self-talk, it wasn't like, you suck, how can you not do this, which is exactly what that voice would have said in the past. It was just, oh, I am so pissed that I am not able to do this right now. Like, I'm going to come and do it tomorrow. And by the time I got from my simulator room upstairs, I had forgotten about it. And that's the difference. Whereas before, that would have stayed with me, and I'm embarrassed to say this, it would have stayed with me for the rest of the day. I would not have been able to shed that anger for the rest of the day, and it would have leaked into everything I did. Whereas now, in 60 seconds, it's not that I didn't remember it happened, it just, the emotion of it had dissipated already.